It was late on a Monday night, and I sat alone in my car, parked on an empty street, my mind spiraling out of control. My hands were sweaty, my legs felt weak, and my heart was pounding like it was about to burst out of my chest. The laughter I had overheard earlier still echoed in my head, taunting me, mocking my ignorance. How could I have been so blind? I had always considered myself a sharp guy, someone who could read people and situations. As an insurance investigator, that was pretty much my job, to see through lies and find the truth hidden beneath layers of deception. But somehow, in my own life, I had missed all the signs. Earlier that evening, I had been sitting in a stall in the office bathroom, trying to calm my stomach after a questionable lunch. I had eaten some seafood that did not sit right, and as I sat there, regretting every bite, I overheard a conversation that would change everything. Jeremy Matthews, one of the guys from work, was bragging to his buddy, Rob Dawson, about how he had seduced a woman at the party we attended the previous weekend. My stomach clenched for a different reason when I realized he was talking about my wife, Amanda. He went on in explicit detail, describing how he got her drunk, how they danced, and how he took her out to his car to finish what they had started. The sick feeling in my gut had nothing to do with the bad food anymore. It was the realization that my wife had betrayed me. I had been called away from the party that night for work, just a couple of hours, nothing major. When I came back, everything seemed fine. Amanda was sitting with some coworkers, including Jeremy, at a table. They were chatting, laughing, and she gave me that same smile she always did when I walked back into the room. I did not suspect a thing. But now, sitting there in the dark, the pieces started to fall into place. Jeremy's smug voice still echoed in my head. It was so easy, he had said, just a couple of drinks and she was all over me. He had even made plans to meet her again next Saturday, while I was supposed to be out golfing. How had I missed this? How had I not seen what was happening right in front of me? Amanda and I had been married for 14 years. We had two beautiful daughters, Haley, who was 10, and Emma, who had just turned 8. Our life together seemed perfect, or at least I thought it was. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any married couple, but nothing that would make me think she would cheat on me. I had to be sure. Maybe Jeremy was just making it all up to impress Rob. Maybe Amanda had been drinking and dancing, but nothing more. But the doubt had already sunk its claws into me, and I could not just sit back and do nothing. I needed to know the truth. The next morning, I put my plan into action. My job had its perks, and access to surveillance equipment was one of them. I grabbed a couple of GPS trackers from the office, one small enough to slip into Amanda's purse and another for her car. If Jeremy was telling the truth about their plans for Saturday, I was going to catch them in the act. I told myself that I was just being cautious, that it was probably all a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew that my instincts were rarely wrong. The rest of the week passed in a blur of normalcy. Amanda went about her daily routine. Work, the kids, dinner at home, as if nothing was wrong. I, on the other hand, could barely concentrate on anything else. Every time I looked at her, I wondered if Jeremy had touched her, if he was telling the truth about what happened at that party. By Friday night, I was ready. While Amanda was in the shower, I quietly slipped the GPS tracker into her purse and placed the other one under her car's dashboard. I knew it was a bit over the top, but I needed solid proof before I confronted her. I could not just accuse my wife of cheating based on some overheard conversation in a bathroom. Saturday morning came, and everything seemed normal. I told Amanda I was heading out to play golf with a couple of guys from the club, as planned. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek before telling me she was going to get her hair done in the afternoon. My heart raced as I left the house, but I kept my cool. I had a different kind of game to play that day. After pretending to meet up with the guys at the golf course, I quickly made my way to the Skyview Motel. I parked down the street, far enough away to avoid suspicion, but close enough to keep an eye on things. The GPS tracker I had placed in her car earlier was working perfectly, and sure enough, just before 2 p.m., Amanda's car showed up on the motel's grid. I watched from a distance as she pulled into the parking lot. My breath caught in my throat as she got out of the car. She was wearing the same dress she had worn the night of the party, the one I had always loved seeing her in. She walked up to one of the rooms and knocked. A moment later, the door opened, and there he was, Jeremy. He grinned at her and let her in, the door closing behind them. I sat there in stunned silence. My worst fears had just been confirmed. I sat in my car, staring at the motel door that had just closed behind Amanda and Jeremy. My mind was a whirlpool of anger, disbelief, and pain. I had seen enough to know what was happening behind that door, but I could not bring myself to move. Part of me wanted to storm in there, to catch them in the act, to make them face me right then and there. But another part of me, the part still desperately clinging to the hope that this was all a misunderstanding, kept me rooted to my seat. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. I kept glancing at the GPS tracker on my phone, watching as Amanda's car sat motionless in the parking lot, a cruel reminder of the reality I was trying to avoid. Finally, I forced myself to start the engine and drive away. I had seen enough, and I needed time to think. I did not go back home right away. Instead, I found myself driving aimlessly, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. How could Amanda do this to me? To our family? Our marriage was not perfect, sure. But this was betrayal at its deepest level. I had always prided myself on being able to read people, to know when something was off. But I had been completely blindsided by my own wife. By the time I got home, it was late in the afternoon. Amanda had already returned from her hair appointment, acting like everything was normal. She greeted me with a smile, asked how my golf game had gone, and mentioned that she had picked up the girls from her mom's house. Her tone was casual, light, completely at odds with the storm of emotions brewing inside me. Golf was fine, I muttered, barely able to look her in the eyes. Every word she said felt like a lie, every smile like an insult. But I could not confront her. Not yet. I needed more time, more information. I needed to be sure that I had everything in place before I made my move. That night, as Amanda sat next to me on the couch, talking about some TV show we had been watching, all I could think about was how she had been with Jeremy just hours earlier. The image of them together in that motel room played on a loop in my mind, taunting me. But I kept my cool. If she noticed my distance, she did not say anything. Over the next few days, I began to piece together a plan. I needed solid proof, something undeniable that would force Amanda to admit what she had done. Confronting her with just my word against hers would be pointless. She could lie, deny everything, and I would be left questioning whether or not I was the crazy one. No, I needed something more concrete. I spent hours at work, using my access to surveillance equipment and resources. Being an insurance investigator had its perks, and I knew exactly how to use them. I obtained the security footage from the Skyview Motel's parking lot, confirming that Amanda's car had been there. The timestamp matched the moment I had seen her arrive. I also accessed her phone records, checking for any unusual activity. Sure enough, there were multiple calls and texts exchanged with Jeremy in the days leading up to the weekend. But the biggest find came when I hacked into the motel's booking system. Using Jeremy's name, I found a reservation for Saturday afternoon under the alias John Doe, but with Jeremy's phone number attached to it. It was all the confirmation I needed. I had everything now. The GPS data, the security footage, the phone records, and the motel reservation, all pointing to the same devastating truth. My wife had been lying to me, cheating on me with another man, and she had planned to do it again. The next few days were torture. Every time I looked at Amanda, my heart ached. She was the woman I had shared my life with for over a decade, the mother of my children. But now, she was a stranger to me, a liar, a betrayer. I wanted to confront her, to scream at her, to make her understand the pain she had caused. But I knew I had to play this smart. Finally, on Friday night, I could not take it anymore. We were sitting at the dinner table, the kids had already gone to bed, and Amanda was telling me about her plans for the weekend. She mentioned she had another hair appointment on Saturday afternoon. The words tasted like poison as they left my mouth. Are you sure that's where you'll be? At the salon? Amanda blinked, taken aback by the sudden shift in my tone. Of course. Where else would I be? I set my fork down, my hands trembling slightly. I know, Amanda. I know everything. For a moment, she looked confused, like she could not quite process what I was saying. Then, something shifted in her expression. Fear, maybe, or realization. What are you talking about, Ryan? I know about Jeremy, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I know what you did at the party. I know where you were last Saturday. And I know you plan to do it again tomorrow." Amanda's face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Finally, she managed to stammer, "Ryan, I—" "Do not lie to me," I interrupted, my voice rising. "Do not even try. I have the proof. I know everything." Tears welled up in her eyes, and for the first time, I saw the guilt. She tried to speak, to explain, but I was done listening. I pushed my chair back, standing up abruptly. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded. "How long have you been sleeping with him?" Amanda sat there in stunned silence, her face pale as the reality of the situation sank in. The tears in her eyes glistened under the dim light of the dining room, and for a brief moment, I thought she might deny it. But the evidence was too strong. There was no way out for her this time. "It was not like that," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ryan, I can explain." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "Explain? You want to explain how you cheated on me with Jeremy? How you lied to me, to our daughters, and went behind my back for— what? Some thrill?" Her tears began to flow freely now, but instead of sympathy, all I felt was anger boiling inside me. "It was a mistake," she stammered, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. It only happened once. I swear, Ryan, it was just that one time at the party. I was drunk. I was not thinking." I slammed my fist down on the table, the sound echoing in the quiet house. "Do not lie to me. I know it was not just the party. I know you met him at the motel last Saturday. I have the footage. I tracked your car. You think I am stupid?" Her mouth fell open in shock, and I could see her struggling to come up with an answer. But she was trapped. She knew I had her. I did not mean for it to happen," she cried, her voice trembling. "I do not know what I was thinking. It was stupid. I was feeling neglected, and Jeremy, he made me feel wanted." I stood up, pushing my chair back with such force that it scraped loudly against the floor. "Neglected? Is that what you are going with now? I bust my ass for this family, Amanda. I work late hours. I travel when I have to, but I am always here when it matters. I take care of you, of the girls. And you—" I could not even finish the sentence. My throat felt tight, and the words were choking me. I had spent years building this life with Amanda, and in one night, she had torn it all down. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. "Please, Ryan, just give me a chance to make it right. I love you. I love our family. It was a mistake. I will do anything to fix this." But her words felt hollow. The damage was done, and nothing she could say would undo what she had done. "You think saying sorry is going to fix this?" I asked, my voice cold. "You think I am just going to forget that you slept with another man? That you lied to me?" Amanda sobbed into her hands, but I felt no pity. I turned away from her, walking toward the living room. I needed space, needed to clear my head before I did something I might regret. I spent the next few days in a fog. Amanda tried to reach out, tried to talk to me, but I could barely look at her. Every time I saw her, all I could picture was her with Jeremy. The thought of it made me sick to my stomach. I could barely eat, barely sleep. I stayed at a friend's place for a few nights, just to get away. I needed time to think, to process everything that had happened. But no matter how hard I tried, the pain lingered like an open wound that would not heal. Amanda texted me constantly, apologizing, begging me to come home, telling me that the girls missed me, but I could not bring myself to respond. How could I go back to the woman who had broken my heart? It was not until the following weekend that I finally went back home, not because I wanted to fix things with Amanda, but because I needed to see my daughters. They had been asking about me, and I could not avoid them forever. When I walked through the door, the house felt different. There was a heaviness in the air, a tension that had not been there before. Amanda was in the kitchen, her eyes red from crying, but she said nothing as I passed by her. I went straight upstairs to see Haley and Emma, who rushed to hug me as soon as they saw me. "Daddy!" Haley exclaimed, wrapping her arms around my waist. "We missed you." I knelt down, hugging both of them tightly. "I missed you too, sweetheart." For a moment, everything felt normal again. Being with my girls reminded me of the life I had built, the family that still mattered to me. But it was a fleeting feeling, overshadowed by the weight of Amanda's betrayal. Later that night, after the girls had gone to bed, Amanda and I sat down to talk. She had been waiting for this moment, and I knew there was no avoiding it any longer. "I know I hurt you," she began, her voice shaky. "And I know things will never be the same. But I do not want to lose you, Ryan. I love you. I love our family. Please, just tell me what I can do to fix this." I stared at her, unsure of what to say. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to move on and try to rebuild what we had lost. But the other part of me, the part that had been betrayed, could not let go of the anger and the pain. "You cannot fix this, Amanda," I said finally. "You made your choice when you slept with him. There is no going back from that." Tears streamed down her face again, but I did not feel the same anger I had before. Now, all I felt was sadness. Sadness for what we had lost, for the life we had built that was now crumbling around us. Over the next few weeks, I struggled with what to do next. Staying with Amanda felt impossible, but leaving her would mean breaking up our family, and that thought was unbearable. The girls were too young to understand what was happening, and the last thing I wanted was to hurt them. Amanda tried everything she could to win me back. She apologized over and over, promised to go to therapy, to do whatever it took to make things right. But no matter what she said, I could not shake the image of her with Jeremy. I confided in a few close friends, asking for advice. Some told me to leave her, to walk away and never look back. Others told me that marriages could survive infidelity, that it was possible to rebuild trust if both people were committed to doing the work. But I was not sure I could ever trust Amanda again. Every time she left the house, I wondered where she was going, who she was with. Every time her phone buzzed with a text, I felt a pang of suspicion. This was not how I wanted to live. One evening, as we sat in silence on opposite sides of the living room, I finally spoke up. "I think we need a break," I said, my voice flat. "I cannot keep living like this." Amanda looked at me, her eyes filled with fear. "What do you mean? You want to leave?" "I do not know," I admitted, "but I need space. I need time to figure out what I want. And I cannot do that if we are living under the same roof." Amanda's face drained of color, her eyes wide with fear as my words sank in. She opened her mouth to speak, but closed it again, as if the weight of what I had just said made it impossible for her to respond. "You want me to leave?" she finally asked, her voice barely audible. "I think it's best for both of us right now," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "We need space to figure out if this is something we can fix, or if we're just prolonging the inevitable." For a moment, Amanda just stared at me, tears filling her eyes once again. "But what about the girls?" she asked. "What are we supposed to tell them?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "We'll tell them the truth. Well, part of it. That we're going to take a break for a while. I don't want to hurt them more than we have to." Amanda nodded, her lips trembling as she wiped away her tears. "Where will I go?" "We'll figure it out," I replied. "You can stay with your mom for a while, just until we know what we're going to do. It doesn't have to be permanent." Though I knew it had to happen, watching her pack up some of her things later that evening felt surreal. Part of me wanted to stop her, to take back what I had said, but another part, the part that had been hurt so deeply, knew it was the only way forward. Our relationship was shattered, and staying together right now would only make things worse. That night, Amanda left. I stayed behind in the house with Haley and Emma, trying to keep everything as normal as possible for them. But it was hard to hide the cracks. The girls could tell something was wrong, even if they didn't fully understand what. For the next few days, I tried to focus on work and the girls, keeping myself busy so I wouldn't have to think about the mess my marriage had become. But the nights were the worst. Lying in bed alone, all I could think about was Amanda and what had happened between her and Jeremy. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the pain. A couple of weeks passed, and the tension began to ease. With Amanda staying at her mom's, I had time to reflect, to think about what I really wanted. Part of me still loved her. How could I not, after everything we had been through? But the trust was broken, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be repaired. One Friday evening, Amanda called. It was the first time we'd spoken since the separation, aside from short conversations about the girls. "I've been thinking a lot," she said, her voice shaky but determined. About everything. And I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking for one. I want to fight for us, for our family. I want to go to counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. I'm willing to do the work, Ryan. I just need to know if you're willing to meet me halfway. Her words hung in the air between us. I hadn't expected this, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. The pain was still raw, the betrayal still fresh. But at the same time, a small part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that we could somehow rebuild what we had lost. I don't know, Amanda, I said honestly. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if this is something we can come back from. I understand, she replied softly. I don't expect you to trust me right away, but I'm willing to earn it, however long it takes. We sat in silence for a few moments, both of us grappling with the enormity of the situation. Let's start with counseling, I finally said. It doesn't mean everything will go back to the way it was, but maybe we can try to figure out if there's something worth saving. For the first time in weeks, I heard a glimmer of hope in her voice. Thank you, Ryan. I promise I'll do whatever it takes. Amanda and I started counseling the following week. It was awkward at first, sitting in a small room with a therapist, discussing our deepest pains in front of a stranger. But as the sessions progressed, I realized that this was something we both needed, not just to save our marriage, but to understand how things had gone so wrong. The counselor, Dr. Harris, was patient, guiding us through difficult conversations and helping us confront the emotions we had both buried. Amanda opened up about her feelings of loneliness and neglect, something I had not fully understood. I had been so focused on my career and providing for the family that I had unintentionally distanced myself from her. It was not an excuse for what she had done, but it gave me insight into why it had happened. I just felt like we weren't connected anymore, Amanda said during one of our sessions. I wasn't trying to hurt you, Ryan. I made a terrible mistake, and I wish I could take it back. But I felt invisible, like you didn't see me anymore. I clenched my fists, trying to suppress the anger that still bubbled up when I thought about her betrayal. I was working hard for us, for the girls, I said, my voice tight. How could you not see that? I know, she replied softly, and I appreciate everything you've done for our family. But I didn't feel like your wife anymore. I felt like a roommate. Jeremy, he gave me attention that I wasn't getting from you. It hurt to hear that, but I couldn't deny the truth. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped paying attention to Amanda in the way I used to. We had become so wrapped up in the daily grind of life, work, kids, bills, that we had forgotten how to nurture our relationship. Dr. Harris helped us navigate those feelings, encouraging us to communicate more openly and honestly. It was not easy. The trust between us was still fragile, and every conversation felt like walking on eggshells. But slowly, we began to rebuild. As the weeks turned into months, Amanda and I worked hard to repair the damage. We went to counseling twice a week, attended workshops on rebuilding trust, and made a conscious effort to spend more time together, just the two of us. No distractions, no kids, no work. It was an attempt to reconnect, to find the love that had once been so strong between us. But the road was long, and there were times when I wondered if we would ever make it back to where we had been. Trust is not something that can be rebuilt overnight. Every time Amanda's phone buzzed with a text or call, I felt a pang of suspicion. Every time she left the house without me, I wondered where she was going, who she might be with. One evening, we sat in the living room after putting the girls to bed. Amanda had been quiet all day, and I could sense that something was weighing on her. I know it's hard for you to trust me again, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know I've hurt you in ways I can never fully make up for, but I want you to know that I'm committed to this, to us. I'll do whatever it takes, Ryan. I love you, and I don't want to lose you. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with all those years ago. The woman I had married, the mother of my children, the person I had built my life with. I love you too, I said quietly, but it's going to take time, Amanda. I'm not going to lie. There are still days when I don't know if I can ever trust you again, but I'm willing to try. She nodded, tears filling her eyes, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we held each other close. A year had passed since that night when everything had fallen apart. Amanda and I were still together, and while things were far from perfect, we were making progress. Counseling had helped us both heal in ways we hadn't expected. We were learning to communicate better, to be more honest with each other, and to work through our issues instead of letting them fester. The trust was still fragile, but it was growing stronger with time. We had learned to be patient with each other, to give each other the space we needed to heal. It was not easy, and there were still days when the pain of her betrayal hit me like a wave. But those days were becoming fewer and farther between. Amanda had cut all contact with Jeremy, and we had made a commitment to be more transparent with each other. No more secrets, no more lies. If we were going to make this work, we had to be all in. Our daughters, Haley and Emma, had sensed the tension between us during that difficult time, but we had done our best to shield them from the worst of it. Now, they seemed happier, more at ease, and it reminded me of why I had fought so hard to keep our family together. Forgiving Amanda was one of the hardest things I had ever done. It took time, more time than I had ever imagined it would. But as the months passed, I began to realize that holding on to the anger was only hurting me. If I wanted to move forward, if we wanted to have any chance of rebuilding our marriage, I had to let go of the resentment. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened. I could never forget the pain of her betrayal, the hurt that had consumed me for so long. But I could choose to forgive her, to allow us both to move forward without the weight of the past dragging us down. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, watching the sunset, I turned to Amanda. "I forgive you," I said softly. She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve it," she whispered, "but thank you." Amanda and I were far from the couple we had been before the affair. But maybe that was a good thing. We had both grown, both learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of communication. We had been through hell, but we had come out the other side, still standing, together. It wasn't always easy. There were still days when the past crept up on me, when the memories of that motel room, of Jeremy, and of Amanda's lies resurfaced. But those moments were becoming fewer, and each day brought us closer to the future we both wanted. A future built on honesty and love. 1 year later, Amanda and I stood side by side, watching our daughters play in the backyard. It hadn't been an easy road, but it was one we had chosen to walk together. And as I looked at Amanda, I knew that, despite everything, we were going to be okay. We had survived the storm, and now, finally, the skies were starting to clear.